All right, I am really excited to get, excuse me, day two of TechMission rolling, and really this first session of the day is one that I think is going to be just really a good conversation with three really good people. So the topic for this conversation is going to be how technicians can help solve the technician shortage, and really we're just having a discussion about how technicians can be part of the solution, and really listening to them and hearing what their thoughts are about what we can do to make this better. So joining me today are Justin, Matt, and Zach. I am really excited to have the three of you here, and we're going to do a quick introduction just to kind of share with our audience who you are and what you do. So, Matt, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Matt Fanslow, diagnostician for Riverside Automotive in Red Wing, Minnesota, where all makes, all models. Typically, I figure it out, and hopefully somebody else will fix it for me, and then I verify the repair.
And how long you been doing it, Matt?
Working there, or just in general?
In general.
I think it's dialing up on 25 years.
So just getting started, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm kind of starting to figure things out. Resetting oil change lights kills me, but.
Justin?
Justin Hynes up in, I'll say Portland, Maine, because it's probably the most easiest recognizable part of the state. I work for VIP Auto or VIP Tires and Service, sorry. And I'm a lead master tech. I do all the diagnostic in the shop I'm in, where we're one of 60 in the company, 500 employees, 60 locations. And I do the repair, verify it. I also teach part-time as an instructor at the local community college, the brakes course. So that's a whole nother side of this. And
like coffee breaks? Oh.
What's that?
Like coffee breaks?
I wish. Yeah. No. I do the hands-on side actually, because of the hybrid learning right now. I just do the hands-on in the shop experience with the kids, students, shouldn't say, they're adults. I'm basically like the shop foreman in the one I am in it's just what they call it. And I'm on year 22, I think.
Another puppy. All right. No.
Burned out puppy. No.
So now I feel too young.
Yeah. I will say VIP is a great company, VIP Tires and Service, really good friends of ours, and just good people all around. So
yeah, Tim recruited me.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Shout out to Tim. Thank you. Zach, how about you?
Well, I am from Santa Rosa, California. That's in the Bay Area of California. And I work currently at mainly Honda. And I also work for their Hyundai store. I'm a line technician for Honda, and I'm one of the main engine technicians for Hyundai. And I think one of few of their master technicians as well. I've been in the industry a total of 10 years. I've been everywhere from tire shops to working on lawnmowers and tractors, and just kind of in and out of the field wherever I fit. So
that's great. That is
must
really
be doing
great.
a lot of recalls.
Oh man, I do all of the recalls. That's all the engines are for Hyundai right now.
When you said that, I chuckled.
Yeah.
Well, so let's get started on our topic of the day, which is how we as technicians can help the industry, right? And I think there's a whole bunch of different areas and avenues that we can take to maybe try to change some of the perceptions that are out there, and paint a light on how many great opportunities there truly are in this industry. Something I'm really passionate about. I know the three of you are as well, and so that's where I'm really excited about this. Now, where some of this stems from is from me just browsing through maybe a Facebook message board, or a variety of different areas online, and maybe seeing some of the negative thought process that goes into somebody that has been a technician. I mean, it breaks my heart when you see somebody that's been in it for 40, maybe even 50 years, and saying that there's no way in hell that they would promote their child going into this business. And so I think that where I want to start at is just kind of asking this question, is that how much of that is reality? There's got to be some reality to it, right? Because somebody that's worked that long in the industry probably has seen about everything. So we've got to give that some credit. So I want to know how much of that perception that's painted online is reality, and how much of it is maybe the more negative crowd kind of controlling the voice of technicians. And Matt, maybe I'd start with you.
I think there's a couple things going on with that. One is it's a lot easier to complain, or I shouldn't say easier. I think it just comes more naturally to go online and complain than it is to start up a post about how great your life is, how great your job is. It almost seems unnatural. It's so much easier to go onto a professional technicians board or whatever, you know, if we're talking about a forum or a Facebook group page, it's so much easier to go on there and rant and rave than it is to just speak so highly of everything. It's just, I think that's one of those natural things. And I would kind of relate it a little bit. Maybe a bad analogy is almost like police officers, where they see like the worst.
Yeah.
And they forget that they're not that they're, you know, mentally handicapped in any way, that they can't think past it. But over time, you just start thinking worse and worse about humanity because you get this concentrated view of the negativity. You see people at their worst. It's rare you get to see them at their best. And I think as a tech, or surfing the boards, surfing the pages, you get this really negative feel for things that's not lying, outright lying, but it's concentrated. It's not exactly reality. There's a lot of positive out there. We just don't get to hear as much about it. I suppose the news too, right? It's the same thing where the negative stuff sells. It's easier to produce. It's easier to grab attention, but it's not necessarily a good reflection of the entire reality of the profession. It's lacking some of the really, really good situations that are out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a lot of times, I'm a big fan of Twitter and reading some of the Twitter feeds. It is almost negative breeds negative, right? So then if you hear the one person, then the next negative person gets in line, and then it's just kind of this big snowball where you get that negative voice that might not be the voice of the collective, but it's the voice of the few that really have the strongest voice. And sometimes they don't paint the greatest picture. And Justin, I don't know if you see any of that as well, but I
Oh
think,
God, yes.
Yeah, I would like to get your thoughts on it too.
I think the biggest way to say it is one negative review trumps 10 positive. I mean, unfortunately, we do a lot with Google reviews and Yelp reviews with VIP, and it's just one negative it's hard to overcome sometimes. But I mean, and it's all about perception too. I mean, as far as the industry and the criticism that goes on, there's usually a misunderstanding half the time with people, you know, at least, you know, a customer, it wasn't portrayed right or something like that, and they feel like they were misled when it really wasn't. It is so, as you know, I mean, every tomato, everybody hears a little different. Yeah, and I mean, and you know, the web and everything else, Facebook and everything has made everything so much more open. And so you hear about the bad, you know, things in the industry and older techs. I mean, yeah, 20 years ago, I had techs when I got this. What are you doing? You don't want to do this. I mean, I'm sure all you guys have. I joke with my students, and it's only a joke. I say the same thing. I said, if I had listened 20 years ago, I wouldn't be here teaching you. So, you know, it's it's a hard industry. It really is. It can be really hard on your body. As we all know, the deeper you get into this, the more ASCs, the more certifications for manufacturer, whatever, it becomes rather lucrative, but it's not instant.
Right.
And a lot of people are looking for instant gratification. And it's not going to happen. I mean, look what we invest in tools and scan tools and toolboxes, because we're all crazy like that, and things and so forth. It's just, my toolbox costs both the more my cars I drive. I mean,
we just had
I have a lot of scan tools that were way more money than my vehicle.
yeah, I mean,
we have our marketing team's doing a great job on TikTok, and they did one about inspirational quotes from technicians, or phrased as technicians, and that was one of them. My toolbox costs more than my car, and the amount of comments we get on that is just it's really funny. But
it's true.
It is. It really is. Now, Zach,
I'm watching the Red Sox game over the computer.
Yeah. So Zach, do you think that maybe these negative people use this as an outlet because maybe they don't feel heard inside their own shops? Maybe they don't feel like they're being listened to?
You know, I think that's exactly right. That most technicians that are happy where they are don't necessarily have negative things to say. And I think that we can even compare that to customer experiences at the dealership, because it's very rare that we hear about positive reviews, whereas we're very quick to hear about negative reviews. And I think that dealing with specifically technicians, you'll hear, oh, well, you know, this shop doesn't pay as well as they should, or you know, they don't have the equipment that they should, or the equipment that they have is broken down. And there is, I think, a miscommunication almost between technician and shop owners or people, managers, where there are certain things that we need that they provide, that those things aren't being met. The standards aren't being met there. And I personally, in my experience, I've got a very technician who works next to me. We're very close personal friends. He's been in the industry for 20 years, and he would openly not recommend people come into this industry for those reasons exactly. And, you know, for me, starting out in the industry at the level that I'm at, I was told by a couple of different people that this is a thankless job, and do not expect people to thank you for doing a good job on their vehicle. And, you know, I have experienced things like that, where I will hear about a customer concern that wasn't repaired correctly, or that they feel wronged by the dealership, and I'll hear about that negativity, but I don't hear about the customer that says, wow, the technician did a really good job on my vehicle. I'm so happy with my service. And honestly, when you do hear that, when you get that kind of positive reinforcement from not only your manager, but the customer, and people are lifting you up rather than just leaving, oh, he did a good job and he knows it because he didn't hear anything bad, you know, to like, that's not the way that it should be. I think that praise and thanks go a very long way in the industry. And that's just something that I've experienced we're not seeing very much of.
Yeah, and I completely echo everything you just said there, because I think it's spot on. So my question then kind of shifts from, okay, there are some negatives. You know, I think that there's a physical toll in this job that you're not going to get sitting behind a desk. There are, you know, just inherent risks with doing the job, right? And so when we look at that, and then we look at maybe some of the stuff that can be changed, and, you know, physical stuff aside, when we look at that, how much control do you guys feel as technicians that you have over, one, changing some of the things in your own shop, but then two, starting to change maybe the culture of our industry moving forward, right? So really the things that a technician can control, are there things, or are there factors that we can control to kind of drive this?
I think it all depends, honestly. It depends on whether or not your management staff, or, like I said, shop owner, is willing to listen to the technician's voice and actually put into effect some change, or figure out with them, well, how can this change be met? But on the other hand, I mean, knowing technicians that bring concerns to owners and managers, most of the time they don't come with a possible solution. And I think it becomes our job as technicians to not only come up with an issue that is in the shop that may be causing some sort of morale issue or even a productivity issue, but we need to come up to them with a possible solution. And at that point, it's up to them to make the change, and whether that becomes a constant change in the area, because it's going to have to start locally, honestly.
Right.
One shop mimics the other shop. It'll either positively affect productivity or CSI or even just customer base. But it really all depends on whether or not the voice of the technician is actually getting up to the people that it needs to get to.
Matt, you look like you had something to add there too.
I mean, I think you have more power than you think, but a lot might have to do with the approach. It also has to do with the situation, right? So independent shop, there's probably not very many levels of management. You might have a manager between you as a tech and the owner. And, depending on the situation, maybe the manager has all the financial pull. He or she can make all the decisions, the owner, But how you approach that, a lot of owners, their identity is that business. So when you come in critical, it's not an attack on the business. It's not an attack on some process or some piece of equipment. It's an attack on them. That's how they perceive it. Mm-hmm. And right away, you put them on the defensive and you're going to lose. So some of it's the approach. And I'm not saying like you got to run back to your box and grab some kid gloves either, but just think about how you're approaching this. And like Zach said, do you have some solutions? Maybe openly admitting like, I don't have the answer, but this does not work, or this is broken, or this needs an improvement. Anything. And here's an article I read, or here's some articles I read, or I went to this class and I caught so-and-so saying this. And I was at a class and during break, they're talking about what they do. That sounds like a really good idea, where it's maybe, not saying like Mr. Positive all the time, but still you're kind of doing the sales pitch, and you just got to kind of consider that, how you're addressing that. And then I think outside of that, social media, again, you don't have to be always Mr. Positivity or Mrs. Positivity, but still try to shoot straight and maybe a positive spin on something a little bit, not blatantly, but no, this isn't as bad as you think. It's more like this, consider this. I know that's really vague, but.
No, I get it. I get where you're going with that, though. I think that's a really good point, is not painting the picture that everything's roses and rainbows all the time. Like, there's going to be tough days, and it's not just for technicians. Every job you're ever going to have is going to have tough days. I don't care. Like, look at, if you're a race car driver, you can still smash into the wall. Cool job, terrible outcome. So like, I think being able to understand that, like, just because you're a technician doesn't mean that like your every day is going to be miserable and like you're not going to be happy. It really is driven by that. And the approach thing that you talked about, Matt, is so important. As a former manager of technicians, that was the one thing that really, really bugged me and was really tough, was if I had a technician come slam the door open and say, this freaking place, blah, blah, blah. And like, I had never even heard the issue before that conversation. And so if maybe that person comes in a little bit lighter and just says, hey, we got to talk. Can we sit down and just kind of brainstorm about this? Even if you don't have the answer, being able to just sit down and talk about it. As a manager, you kind of sit back and you're like, okay, yeah, absolutely. But if it's kind of just blazing in, I think you're going to get that defensive reaction every time.
I mean, just a quick example is I do very, very little like mechanical work, very little. But I know my guys in the back, for the type of work they do and the amount of times they're dropping engines, transmission, powertrains out of front wheel drive vehicles or all wheel drive vehicles, they really deserved like a powertrain table or lift or jack. So yeah. the AGA makes one, and I think it's well accepted as very, top of the line. It's not cheap. But I built up an argument, if you will, or a sales pitch to the boss. Like, hey, We did 3 cars last month. We did 3 cars last week. Imagine the amount of time that would have saved. That one car, you had 3 people over there helping line everything up as you lifted it back up. And this table would allow the tech to do it all by themselves. And he hemmed.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, he hemmed and hawed about it for a little bit, but watched some videos, read some articles, saw some of the discussions on professional boards. Tells me to order it up. And the first time he saw it used, you know, I'm not saying it paid for itself, but he felt so much better about that investment.
You're speaking his language, right?
Safer as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And the text, like immediately there's more than just the dollars and cents of it too. There's also the morality. Like the tech sees this, sees that you invested in this. Now you care more and you're making their job easier. They used to have such a weird negative spin to it. Like, oh, you want me to make your job easier, huh? Well, think about what you're saying. You make their job easier. They're probably going to be faster at it. They're probably going to do a better job at it. They're going to be more accurate, whatever, more. It's like positive, positive, positive. Why wouldn't you do it?
It always helps if you can actually sit down and show how it could be profitable for both sides as well, which is a good way to approach it. I couldn't agree more about the way you approach. I have had technicians come to me just hopping mad, and I said, I need you to calm down and think about this rationally while you're not upset. And if you have something to go say it in a very calm tone and just open that dialogue with, specifically in my situation, my service manager. But same thing, you know, there wasn't a lot of chain of command for when I worked at an independent shop. I was the lead technician and then there was the owner. So it was very easy to get what we needed when we needed it, if it made sense for the shop. You know, every situation is different, but that is, I will agree, very important about how you approach the whole situation as a whole.
Based on your response right there, Zach, I think I'm just going to go to you with all my problems. Like that was the most profound response to an upset person I've ever heard. Like yeah. If I could do that, I think you need to teach me your ways. That's amazing.
Well, that's what we're here to do, isn't it?
Yes. Justin, how about you? I mean,
I've been chomping at the bit a little bit. I've been waiting to I had something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it starts in the shop, obviously, with trying to make sure the perception and your whole group is doing the right thing in the right way. But, and we seem to do a really good job at that for the most part. And as our company pretty much dictates, we have store meetings every month. We have a store and we try to get discussions of where we're having problems, what we need to do. And it's supposed to be actually bi-weekly, not even, at least once a month, if not bi-weekly. And then the other thing that they, as the company does, we do an all associates meeting, which they spread us up into like groups of 20 or 30 and do it for like 2 or 3 weeks and through the whole company. And you get in and you do a survey, and then the survey's discussed, and it's a lot of like a round table of people just putting ideas out on how can the company as itself deal with this, or why are these people so upset, or why is this such a big topic, or you know whatnot. I mean, it's open dialogue really, and if you have owners or a company or the corporate group or whatever that's willing to listen and say, okay, where are our shortcomings? What are we doing here? Why are we losing people? Why can't we make this better for people? What can we do? It's I tell people, I mean, Jay, you might know a little background with VIP of what we've gone through in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we went through an old owner. Now we have a management team and an ownership team that is just phenomenal. Honestly, they listen. They're always fighting for us basically.
How much does that impact you? Like,
it makes you feel really good, honestly, where they're listening and they're trying to help you and upgrading benefits and sick time and days off and just boot allowances and different. I mean, that's just things that are coming off the top of my head, but
right,
the pay scales and training and just on and on and on and on and on.
Well, without you having to beg for it, right? It's almost like the Amazon Prime model of just keep adding value for the same price, right? Like it's kind of the same way here, where maybe, you know, you might mention it in passing, or you might mention it in one of those surveys or something, but it's not to the point to where you're begging for it. It's truly like, hey, this is feedback. And when you see that actually going into action when you recommend it, or even if you don't, you know that they still have your best interest in mind. And I think just having that trust goes so far for any type of leader, but specifically a manager technician relationship. If that technician sees that you're fighting for them, I think that goes a long ways, and something that you just can't put on paper. You got to do.
Yeah, and I'm not saying our management and tech relationship is perfect, because it's not. I mean, we have days where we just wring each other's necks. But I mean, as any industry or family, as we all know. But I mean, you got to make it work. You got to make it right. You got if you want a good place to work, and that's the biggest thing. Is just you want to be happy where you are.
And that leadership makes such an impact. I mean, I talk to techs every day, and that's the same thing. We can talk about money all we want, but at its core, if you're not treated with respect, you know, I just talked to a tech today that left the job to go to a job that paid $10 more per hour and hated it, just because he was not treated very well, right? Like he went from a place that treated him really, really well and went to a place that didn't treat him well at all. I mean, just not a great environment. Yeah. And I think that's some of, like, if from a technician standpoint, I'm curious from your end of what advice would you give to maybe that younger technician that might be looking at a job and is looking squarely at that salary? Would you tell them to look at other things? Would you tell them, yes, salary is the most important because that's going to support your family? Or what advice would you give to a younger tech that might be looking at something else?
So we just actually had this happen with one of our younger techs. Just left to go to a dealer and got like an $8 an hour raise. And he's traveling probably double or triple what he was traveling. And he told me about it. He's in a different location, but I used to work in that location. I happened to see him and we talked, and I said, yeah, I heard, bud, and you know, sorry to see you go, whatever. But I said, I don't know if it's the right move for you. And he said, neither do I, but I'm young and I want to chase money. And I went, that's your choice, but I don't think it's going to be the best fit for you. I think, you know, knowing his personality and knowing, as we all know, what sometimes dealers will eat up young techs and spit them out, and even shops. I mean, I hate to say that, you know, they throw a lot of money, there's promises and things, and it's, I don't know, it's hard
to live up to.
I was that age, and I did do that at one point, you know what I mean? But then there becomes responsibilities, and you got to realize the bigger picture, and what's more important is making sure, you know, you have that stable thing and you have the benefits, and money's not everything.
Well,
benefits is money, but you know what I mean.
When you take that money, your expectations go up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like your ability to learn on the job go down. It's you know, I'm paying you a lot of money, get that out. And, you know, I think that's where, when you go swinging for the fences in terms of money right off the bat, you can set yourself up for a lot of failure. And that's where I think a lot of negative experiences come. Matt, I don't know if you have something to add to that.
I mean, you try to explain the future, and you know, and I think for quite a while been kind of anti bumping up the starting wages. I always felt like it was much wiser to take care of your veterans, because then they turn into your best salesmen. So if you've got a group of veterans that have been with you for a decade or more, or whatever, even 5 years, you got the young guy on the lube rack who's, you know, has good days, bad days, whatever, struggling, not just with the job itself, but paychecks and all that, you know, and maybe he's got some friends working in factories that are making more money, but you have your sales force back there going, hey man, just relax. Give it time. This place is a great place to work, or this trade or profession is great because you know what? If you don't like it here, but you've been here for a while, you've got some experience, you can write your ticket. You can go work wherever you want. They're hiring. They'll hire you over the phone. And
Especially right now. It's gross.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
right. So it's like, you know, think about the future. I know it's hard. You're, you know, in late teens, early 20 something. But start thinking towards the future, because someday you're not going to be 20 something. Someday you're going to have a family, and that's when things are going to get really good for you. The pay, the benefits, the stability, the flexibility, you know, which I know is almost an oxymoron, stability and flexibility, but you have the stability of you're always going to have a job, you know, especially if you're a good worker, you know, and maybe you ever watch that Simon, is it Sinek? S-I-N-E-K?
Yes.
He's got a really, really good video. Robert Silverstein posted it up, a video of him where he's talked to some Navy SEALs, and he draws this chart. It's just a simple chart, you know, a big L. And on one side going up and down, he's got performance. And on the bottom, he's got trust. And you want, perfect world would be the top of both. High performance, high trust. But as a team, as an association or group, you would very much settle for lower performance, but maintain that high trust. So if you're that person, you're very trustworthy, honest, whatnot, your performance can change. It can get better. You're never going to be without a job. And if you decide for whatever reason, you know, the wife, the husband, the whatever gets a job offer out of state, you're going to have a job probably before the plane lands. There's very, very few professions that happens. Very few, and it's getting fewer and fewer and fewer. And then besides the point, all the things you can do as a technician, be it diagnostician, mechanic, whatever, that translates over to so many other things that if you end up where you can't be in this profession anymore, you can find a job, a career outside of it very easily, because they need your skill set. They need it. So, I mean, there's a lot of really good things going on for us. You know, it doesn't get quite enough fanfare, but that's what I would try to explain to the kid. Maybe not quite as impassioned, but.
Oh, you should. That was amazing. That was really good. We're going to have to clip that out. Now, Zach, I know you and I have had discussions on this where you've got a personal friend right now that is maybe a young tech going through this experience right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe from that standpoint, maybe explain kind of his situation, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts on like how we could make that situation better.
Well, currently he's been at the Honda store that I am working at for about 8 or 9 months. Brand new to the technician side. He worked at a parts store for about 3 years as parts manager. So he was already familiar with parts and stuff, and doing that. Obviously, component replacement became kind of easy for him as well, you know. But he is having trouble at the dealership level currently moving up at a what I would want to say a reasonable pace. And to build off of what Matt said, I mean, you do want to take care of your older guys, because right now in the experience that I'm having specifically with him is that most of the education that he's getting is from me and my peers that are on equal or greater training level or skill level than me. And for him, it seems like a lot, there's being steps being given to him as to how to move up. And each time he meets a goal, you know, obviously he expects to move up in rank, not in pay. I know that we always like to talk about dollar amount, but he's not trying to get a raise. He just wants to learn. He's very ambitious. And I've seen this happen before with more people that I didn't know as personally. And what I found is that most dealerships will make it a long process to move up, which it shouldn't be quick, but it obviously shouldn't be the longest thing, to where they get uninterested very quickly. When you are doing oil changes, you're working on, I mean, I worked in a lube rack, specifically just a quick service where we pushed 150 cars out of that shop per day on 3 stalls. And yeah. And I mean, it was, we worked from 7 to 5 every single day. We had 3 different crews. The second crew was on from 9 to 7. I mean, we were open for a long time, and everybody wanted to move up. And whereas before there was no room to move them up, you had a lot of guys that had been in the industry for 20, 30 years that were getting ready to retire, that they were staying where they were. But right now we're in such a deficit for technicians that there is room and there is time to move people up, and at a not accelerated rate, but at a reasonable rate. And if you've got guys that are that ambitious, if you've got guys that are real go-getters and are willing to meet these goals in a reasonable amount of time, why not give them a little bit more responsibility? Why not, let them go out with some of the lead technicians or line technicians and watch them do heavier duty repairs? It becomes a really good learning experience for them. And not only that, but it keeps them feeling like they're being given more responsibility, a little bit more trust, and it keeps it entertaining, keeps them interested in the industry. I think that's one of the big problems that we're seeing right now is just the ambition is slowly being stifled by just how long the process is taking. And I know to some older guys that might be like some guys that have been in there for a long time, they might come at you saying, oh, well, it took me this many years to get to where I'm at right now. And it does. It's very hard work, and it takes a long time, takes a lot of dedication to get to where we are. Even me being only been here for 10 years, I'm just now making lead technician money, given these big projects to work on, and just about everywhere I go that my title follows me. But it took this long. So it's one of those things where like we have an opportunity to kind of accelerate the learning a little bit if these guys are getting it and not making very many mistakes. And I think the time is right now to keep these guys, interested, get them trained up as quickly as we can,
So I had an interesting conversation today with a Ford dealer, and it was the general manager of this Ford dealership. And he had an interesting thought here. And this is, I don't know that there's an answer in this roundtable here, but one of his things, and he just kind of came out and said, he said, you know what, we've got at least 2 or 3 people that are on the lube rack right now that deserve to be in the main shop. They deserve to be over there, but we are so desperate for help that we can't backfill them. Like, we need them over in the main shop. We need them to get over there, but we're having such a difficult time even getting people to come into the lube rack that we're paralyzed by it a little bit because we can't shift them. And I think being able to appreciate that from a technician level, and this is where I think it gets really frustrating on both ends, right? Because the younger, eager technician wants to move up the ladder really fast. I think we've all been in that scenario before where we want to get up the chain as fast as possible, want to make as much money as possible, and be as respected as possible, right? And then you've got the shop side where they're like, yes, I really want you to be over there, but I don't know how to put the pieces together, like in trying to figure that out. And maybe that's that shop manager having a conversation with that lube tech and saying, hey, you know what? Maybe you got some friends out there that would want to come in here and want to learn this business. If you can help me get some people in here, then it makes it much easier to get you to that next level. But I think that transparency and that communication is something that's missing a lot of times, where
right.
that, maybe that manager said it to me, but hasn't said it to that lube tech. And that lube tech in the back of their mind is just thinking, you know what? They forgot about me. I'm back here. And in reality, they're thinking about it every day. They just don't do a good job at communicating that. So I don't know if I'm off base there or not, but I do feel like we're stuck between a rock and a hard place there. And I think a lot of it stems from being able to get those younger people in so that you can move those really young.
I think it's ambition too. I really think it's the guys that show the drive, the ambition, that want to go. I mean, we all seen it. You hire a lube tech that just, some of them don't want to do it. They just, getting a job, they think it's going to be easy.
Very true.
It's not. And I mean, especially with our company, you're doing tires most of the time. You're not even doing oil changes. You're doing tires. And tires, as we know, can kick your butt.
that's a physical job. Tires are physical.
So
Yeah, I think management needs to step back, and especially if the lack of line techs is hurting the other line techs, like they know it's a problem. They don't like being backed up that much, which might be a tough sell, but you know, I'm assuming that's an issue. You may just have to sit back and talk, have a bit of a meeting and say, we can't let these guys leave. They're too good. That, you know, they got what it takes. So you as a veteran, normally you don't have to do oil changes, but we could move these guys up to the line. We'll split up the oil changes. Maybe we'll revise how we compensate, because I think veteran techs, especially in flat rate type shops, not even just dealerships, just more of the commission based shops, kind of get hosed on oil changes. And how they can, maybe the dealership or the shop takes a little bit more of a burden on that financially, so that you can keep these guys and give them that feeling of progress and moving up the chain, even if it's just by title rather than pay, you know. And then eventually, of course, both. You gotta step up. You gotta earn it.
It just happened in my shop, actually. We just moved one of our lube techs up into a line tech position, and basically, I mean, he's a ASE tech. I mean, he's got a couple basic ones, but he doesn't have a lot. He's I don't want to say he's entry level, but he's, you know, the brakes, the suspension, the alignments, the preventative maintenance stuff. And I'm telling you what, this kid had confidence coming into it, and he's knocking it out of the park.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very awesome.
I mean,
yeah, that is good to hear.
But it's still like, you get him into like light diags. He's very weak in electrical and some stuff like that, which is fine. And other than it usually ends up in my bay, but that's beside the point.
Diag's rough. We talk a lot about it, but it's rough. I mean, I've got a guy working for me. He's really smart. He really is. I can tell he's got what it takes. He just doesn't have the underlying theory. So they had a vehicle in today. The complaint was a lack of power, and they were going down the rabbit hole. And I was on another vehicle, and before they started really chucking parts at it, they came and got me and asked me what we should do. And I said, well, grab a scan tool. Let's go for a ride. And we didn't drive a block. I knew what was wrong with it. And it's not like, you know, super complex. It was a contaminated mass airflow sensor. But I knew what to look at for data, and you know, what led me down that. And now it's like, I can tell you what to look at, but if you ask me why, that's a long conversation we're gonna have to have over a lot of lunches.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you see this data do this, start going this direction. That's kind of what I left them at. But that's just one instance. You start adding that up. There's so much to learn in this trade or profession. There's so much. And, you know, you think about it, you guys do more bumper to bumper than I do. That skill set is amazing. That's amazing what you can do, be it on a couple of car lines or many car lines. It's impressive, right? It's really impressive to me. Yeah, it blows my mind.
Same here. I couldn't do it, right? Like I grew up in a shop all my life, and I sucked at it. I sucked at the diagnostics. I sucked at the repair. Like I just was not a good technician. So that's why I've got so much respect for everything that.
It's funny because I have friends that are in dealers that love being in that love the dealer world. They love dealing with one make or two makes, depending on the dealer they're in. And then I've got friends like myself, which, God, that's driving me nuts.
I'll tell you right now,
Stuck on the same manufacturer and the same car over and over and over. Zach, all the props to you for doing all these Hyundai. Come on, I can't do it.
I actually did the math today, and in order to make good flag time on these things, I have to do 3.5 engines a week in order just to get a little over my 40 per week. So
look at the guys that are doing the Tacoma frames. Oh my
God.
Oh,
I worked for I was a Toyota chassis expert for about 3.5 years. I've been there too. No, I've become very quickly the every make and model guy just because of my background. So even no matter where I work, I'm working on just about everything. But to build off of what you were saying with the lack of lube techs to backfill, I'm with Matt on that one. That was my suggestion to my manager was, why don't we stop doing a lube quick service? I know that wait times are a big problem for a lot of customers, but so is the workload. We don't have the work coming in that we had coming in 3 to 5 years ago, pre-COVID even. So we do have the bodies to not run a quick service and actually just run a small hybrid pay, everyone does oil changes operation. And that's where, like, I could go on about the hybrid pay. I think it's a fantastic idea for a lot of dealerships, but even other shops. But that's where again, your lead guys, your older guys are going to come into play. They're going to need to start stepping up to the plate and saying, I'm going to have to do some just oil change, tire rotations, but it's all in the greater good to get these other guys trained and to ultimately get more bodies in. Most concerns is with flat rate shops, because you got guys that don't want to do oil changes for 7/10 and make hardly any money.
I wish it was 7.
We're lucky they bumped it up from 5 to 7.
We're at 5. We're at a half an hour.
Yeah, see, that's oil changes. That's another topic of conversation you could talk about forever. Oil change is never just an oil change, but
Oh God, no. God,
Can't
no.
be. Yep.
You get the guys coming in, the more experienced guys doing your oil changes, which not only increases their amount of hours, but you're getting that refined eye on that vehicle. That's where you're really going to make your upsells. So you have more experienced technicians touching oil changes, as well as you have the newer guys learning how to do heavier duty work. And I feel that would increase profitability again for both sides by just making that change. And it would also keep the younger guys more interested, because you'd be able to move them up faster.
Well,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I think maybe even a bigger picture than what you just talked about there, Zach, is for those shop managers that are listening out there, and you hear these ideas that technicians have. It's not just these 3 that have great ideas, right? Like, look at the technicians in your shop, actively sit down with them and evaluate your operation and listen to what they have to say, because I think they're on the front lines. You see the money side, you see the business side, but being able to sit down and truly kind of think through a problem with technicians, and maybe you're like, hey, you know what, Zach, I can't pay my top tech to do oil changes. They just make too much money. There's no way it would work. What I would encourage everybody to do is to then sit down and have that conversation, face to face, kind of put it all on the table and just say, okay, here's our problem. How do we fix it? And I think by bringing technicians to the table in those conversations, one, as a manager, you get a lot more respect from the technicians, but then 2, you truly hear some of the problems from the other side too, right? And some of the things that maybe they've seen in some of their past experiences at other shops that might have worked better. And overall, I mean, you're trying to make a better environment and one that makes a lot of money, right? So how do you sit down and kind of put the pieces together so that everybody's happy? Granted, not everybody's always going to be happy, but I think your chances of getting to a happier technician base stem from that communication and being able to bring them to the table in some of those really, really important conversations. And I think oftentimes I see it as maybe a fixed ops director or an owner feels like they have to know the answers and that they have to know everything. And that's a lot of pressure, one, on a fixed ops director and owner to have to take on that burden. But 2, there's just so much good that comes out of conversation and sitting down with your people and being transparent about some of your struggles, right? Like, I think if you're not transparent about them and you're trying to always paint a rosy picture, you can't get to the core of what you can change that'll be really, really great stuff. And so hopefully, I don't know if you guys are seeing that yet or not, like being able to be at the table for those types of conversations, but I hope so. Like, I hope we're starting to get there.
well, I can't speak for everybody in this group, but I can guarantee that if we're not having the conversations, which at my dealership currently, I do have a very open relationship with my service manager in a sense to where we communicate constantly. But I don't know, like I said, about everyone else, but I guarantee that at most shops, we as technicians are already having conversations like we are having in this group today amongst one another. And these conversations often happen just before technicians start to leave.
Yes.
And if you can like get in there before that problem starts to happen and maybe have the conversation with everyone, I agree that would be very important to do and very helpful in a lot of ways.
Matt, it looked like you had something to add there.
Well, I guess I was kind of hanging back. If you were going to ask, there's one more question that you had on here that I think leads to where I would be positioned with this latest question.
So is it basically, I think I know which question you're talking about, and that is if you were a manager or an owner of a shop and say, I put these magical boots on you and now all of a sudden you're running the show, what is it that you would change? Yeah. And I hope that's the question.
That is exactly it. Yeah. And it's a dangerous question because I think as a tech, you need to step back and you got to think about this, because I think the knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, well, you hand me the keys to the kingdom. Everybody, $10 an hour pay raise, medical, dental, eyeglass, life insurance, mental insurance. You all get 4 weeks paid vacation. You're going to get sick time. You're going to get paid for jury duty.
Sounds like you're running for president.
Yeah, free boots every 6 months. Right? And that's what you would want to do. And I'm not saying any of that's a bad idea, because the reality is a lot of that is available in other professions right now. So that's a great goal, but that's what it's got to be. Most shops I know can't, even if they wanted to, they can't. So you hand me the keys to the kingdom, the first thing I want to do is I want to learn how to be a really good businessman. I want to learn how to run a profitable shop. And then I want to take everybody else with me. So we're going to turn this thing around, assuming it's not doing so great, or if it's just on the cusp of doing great. What do I need to learn how to do? How do I become a better leader? How do I become a better marketer? What do I need to do as this owner, as this manager, to make these goals happen? And sooner rather than later, how soon can I accomplish these things? And beyond the pay, equipment upgrades, environmental upgrades, be it lighting, HVAC, heating and air conditioning, depending on where you live, the floors, whether they're, I think tile might be the way to go, looking at some of these shops instead of the epoxy. Yeah. Some of them tiled floors. Wow. A, they look nice. B, not very slippery or too slippery.
Epoxies are pretty slippery.
Yeah.
Problem with tile is grout joints and brake clean don't get along.
I've seen these ones going into like Euro shops. I don't know if you guys know Seth Thorson and Eurotech. He's got them in, and they look, they're not, I don't think they're ceramic. There's something else. They look amazing, and they're of course durable, and of course if one would break, you just pop that one out and replace it, where epoxies can be a big deal. But anyways, all that, what do I need to do to learn how to make this profitable and go from being a tech to a business person, going from a former tech who owns a shop to now being a business person? And I think that's what I would do. And because of that, as a tech, I don't know, management's always interested me. IATN back in the day, I would spend a lot of time reading the shop management forums and reading books on management, not because I had a dream of being a manager, but I wanted to better equip myself for some of these discussions, because I felt like for me to be more and more successful, the shop had to be more and more successful. How could I help that happen? And then learning how to approach people with these ideas instead of being the know-it-all. How can I help bring about changes that would help hopefully everybody, including the shop, and get me what I wanted, not just a bigger paycheck, but also that scan tool, that scope, this piece of equipment, an AGA table, whatever.
I love that. Justin, do you have anything you'd add to that?
No, I think he's right though. I think it's learning how to be profitable. I think that's the biggest thing is how do you make the whole business model succeed? How do you how do I want to say this? How do you it's just it's training, it's everything. It encompasses everything. It's training for your people, it's equipment, it's facilities. It's like he said, it's everything. It's benefits, it's really hard to just pinpoint it. It's a whole overview. And I how do I want to say this? The question you were saying earlier is like, how do you build the confidence in them in the early stages? That's the biggest thing I see with my students is a lot of them are great hands-on, but they have no confidence in themselves.
Yes.
And then you see the guys that come up and it's confidence. That's the biggest thing is making sure your guys that want to succeed and want to move on can build the confidence in themselves or have the confidence in themselves. That's two different levels of tech right here. You got someone that comes in that's confident in themselves and someone that isn't confident in themselves. That's you see total different ball game right there.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. How about you, Zach? I mean, if we gave you the keys to the shop and said, hey, good luck, go run it, what would you do to change things?
I mean, in my mind, and I'm sure in many technicians' mind, I'd go crazy, like Matt was saying, like all kinds of vacation time and stuff. But realistically, that's not something that we can do. And it's not something that anyone should expect from their shop owner or dealership or anything like that. I think that the biggest thing that I would change is I would open I would have a more open line of communication with the shop. I think it's important that rather than seeing things as technicians and then advisors and managers and sales department and service department and all of this, what I'm hearing is division. I'm hearing different departments for different things. I'm hearing there's management for service advisors, there's management for technicians. Well, there's not a whole lot of synergy there. There's not a whole lot of communication between the departments, and I think it becomes important for as a shop foreman type role to be involved not just in the technicians and productivity and making sure everyone's trained, but also being realistic about, okay, well, we need these tools, and how many of these tools do we need versus how many techs we have? How many jobs are we getting that require this tool? That if this were tied up for a day or two, how much money are we losing, or how much profitability can we bring in if we spent, let's say, just $4,500 on a new, table jack, like he was saying, if you spend X amount of dollars on this tool, how much more money is it going to make you in that year? And I've sat in the office with a service manager of mine, and we went over profitability versus how much time you save on a job. And on average, specifically for our store, it's close to, if you save 15 minutes a day on a job that pays on an oil change, you save 15 minutes a day on one oil change for a year, that translates into almost $300,000 a year in profitability. And I don't think people realize that. And if they do realize that and they're not capitalizing on that information, well, that's just, that's a little foolish in my mind. If you have the means, it goes back to the old saying, you got to spend money to make money. And that's how we look at it when we hop on the Snap-on truck and spend all of our fishing money on a new tool because we need to get something done a little quicker. It's how much money is this tool that I'm buying for this much gonna make me here? And that's where open communication with the shop would be beneficial, because also it would give you the opportunity to allow them to understand your side, and you don't need to know everything about the ins and outs of the business as a technician. But if I were an owner, I would be a little bit more open about, well, realistically, this costs us this. Where would it save us here? Could you see the give and take on that? And that would be the number one thing to do, is just open up that communication between the shop and the management.
Well, I think it even goes you know, you say you had that conversation with the service manager, and you know, making sure that, especially in a dealership where there are layers, right? Where maybe, you know, some of the others might not have those layers as much, but making sure that message goes from the technician to the service manager to the fixed ops director to the owner, or, you know, depending on how, you know, every shop is different, but the more layers you add, it's like that, remember telephone when you're kids, and you have to, like, by the time it got to the end, the message was skewed, right? And so being able to make sure that that same message gets from the technician to the person writing the check, I think is really, really important, and is something that is tough, right? It's tough. It's communication. So I 100% agree with you there. We are coming up on our time already. One thing to lead off, or to not lead off, to end this, I'm going to ask you guys one last question, and that question is, how do you feel about the future of this industry?
Well, I think that right now the industry is going through a great many changes. We're on the precipice of full electric vehicles being more and more common. We are going through such a big change in workload, in how we even have customers come in, and how we're, you know, the reception of those customers, and it's all becoming electronic, it's all becoming streamlined. I think that if we could get more shop owners, dealerships to listen to things like this, or to be more involved in things like this. The fact that I found out about, you know, what you guys are doing, and it was the first that I heard of it, it gave me hope for the industry. I think that we have a really good opportunity now with everything that's going to be going on, to where we are going to go through some really good changes, and I think that it's going to be very positive for the industry.
Love it.
Yeah,
Justin?
I think Zach kind of hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, the future is hybrids or full electronics. I mean, just for instance, I mean, our company's sending 10 techs in the week before Christmas. We're going to full hybrid school.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we have 30 something hours of online course that we have to do before then, and then we go for a full week to hybrid school. And it's, you know, I mean, they're looking at what's coming. I mean, it's really in this partnerships with the schools, I think is really, these companies need to get on board. I mean, our company's trying to do it, and it's been a struggle. And luckily with me and my district manager, who is in the Portland region, is involved with the college that I'm at, that he, as far as he's on our board of, you know, to get accreditations and stuff. And it's funny how many, you know, you hear them that the schools don't want to talk to the companies, and the companies don't want to talk to the schools. And it's just, you got to find these kids that are passionate for the cars and move them up, and that want to do this. But I think it's coming back to where people want to do this to a point, because the hands-on college degree is kind of coming back around, if you know what I mean, or the hands-on training that, you know, you don't necessarily have to have a college degree for it. It does help, but I mean, there are, you know, it's not I'm going to go be a lawyer, and I'm going to go be a doctor, and I'm going to go be a teacher, which those are all great professions, don't get me wrong, but it's this is just as important. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but during COVID, we were essential. So, I mean, we never stopped. Our company took care of us, and we never stopped. We had like 2 weeks of a lull, and we were right back at it.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Why don't you finish things off here, Matt?
I don't know how. The end. But I agree with the COVID statement that, you know, we had a 2-week lull, never stopped, and kind of back to that stability. I don't think there's, maybe if you go way back, but I don't think there's been a better time to get into this than there is right now, or at least the last few years. I think the future is very bright, career-wise. You know, things are changing and evolving with the the shortage of people with the skill sets we need to do this at a professional level is driving everything up. We're catching up to our other fellow tradesmen, and in some cases exceeding them, and I think deservedly so. You know, say what you will about a plumber or a electrician, great jobs, we need them. It pales in comparison to auto repair. What we need to know, what we need to be able to do, and often, or I shouldn't say oftentimes, most of the time, what we're required to possess to do this. So I think that's starting to get reflected in compensation packages, that we're getting things that we've never had before with the insurances. The benefits are improving, and I just feel like it just hasn't, it's never been better. And then the technology is getting to the point where not a lot of people can do this. You know,
What's the difference between a doctor and a mechanic? The only difference is the doctor does the valve job with the engine running.
yeah, the models haven't really changed for a couple thousand years, but
Right.
Yeah, there's only two different models.
yeah. But yeah, I don't want to sound like super overly optimistic person, but I think the reality is there's really never been a better time to get into this, and you know, with a career in mind. I think it will be very rewarding, not just in your wallet and your checking account, but also just, you know, for yourself, for your ego, for your mind. You know, it's great to have something different to do every day. Unless maybe Zach, he's got to do everything, same thing every day to hit his hours. But no,
It's very true.
but yeah, every day is different, and that means a lot.
Well, this, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. This has been a true pleasure to have the three of you on and talk about this. I think the three of you represent what's good about this industry in general. And I really do thank you for coming on, and hope that all of our listeners enjoyed that, because I think there's just so many good pieces to take out of this conversation, and really some thoughtful things, right? Some things that you can take home and really look at and hopefully change if you're not already at that level. But yeah, thank you guys. Truly appreciate it. Appreciate everything you do on a daily basis, and true pleasure to have you on TechMission here this year.
Thank you. It was definitely an honor to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
Thank you very much for having me.